The dreamscape that greeted him was wild, colorful, and all over the place. Hardly a first, though this time it rang especially powerfully. At first, it was just a lot of what had happened earlier that day. Professor Emerson popping in at inopportune times and places he would never be, saying things he would never say. It would have been a bit comical to see even, maybe take some of his stress off. Much of his dreams were interspersed with total blackness as Bobby's brain stared down the abyss. Who truly was he? Could he get any answers, or was he forever doomed, destined to live out the frankly unfulfilling existence until the day he died? Some parts were overlaid with the music from his favorite video games, other parts still with trippy visual effects that wouldn't be out of place in a hallucinogenic acid trip. But the really interesting part came a bit later, around 4 p.m., when several people had situated themselves on the parts of the sofa around Bobby, who was still laying there, sound asleep, his body outstretched like a cat on the floor. The impact of their combined weight wasn't enough to wake him up, but it did send his brain into a whirl, as if the people sitting down had physically pressed down on some sort of switch inside him. And it was then that he found himself seeing something interesting. In his dream was himself, left with his own thoughts and emotions, except there was no Bobby. The figure in his mind's eye, replacing him, had no face, but had long, flowing, jet black hair, just like Rin. Only the person wasn't Rin, and it obviously wasn't Bobby either. This person was someone entirely different, bearing no real resemblance to him as he was, but at the same time still carrying from the real world into the dream world most of the things that made him him. It was a very strange version of him, who for some reason had everything he didn't. Soft, smooth skin, a healthy body, and the soothing voice of a goddess. Who this person was, why his brain decided to replace him with her, Bobby had no clue. If he'd had a tape recording of his dreams, no doubt, psychologists would be studying it with a fine-tooth comb. "Dear, I'm home," a faceless voice echoed in the distance. "Oh, you're back. I'm so glad you're safe," cooed the girl in Bobby's dreams. She didn't have a name, but that was okay with Bobby. "Look, babe, I got you a little something for your birthday," said the other voice. Bobby couldn't tell whether it was a man or a woman. "What? Oh, it's so kind of you," exclaimed the birthday girl, her lips pursing together and her eyes, which looked like Bobby's only sparkling and full of life, narrowing. As she opened her gift, she instantly gasped as her face formed the purest, most adorable expression of shock. The O shape of her mouth was a perfect oval, matching with her bright, expressive eyes that said it all. Her skin beamed from top to bottom as she saw what was inside. "What do you think?" Before she could say anything, her eyes started to well up with tears, her lips quivering as she wept. "It's beautiful. Thank you." The other voice placed an arm around her, wrapping around her flowing hair. "Oh, babe, it's okay. I'll always be here for you." And as the girl wiped away her tears, not of sorrow, but pure, unbridled joy, she stared out at the sunset with the most innocent, magical look on her face, her mouth forming an upside-down triangle, and her eyes filled with utter, genuine bliss. From her window, the sunset got closer and closer, zooming in on the orange tint of the sun, on the buildings in the streets, as cars sounded their horns in the distance. At first, the horns were almost inaudible, but then gradually grew louder and closer until they turned into a vibrating sensation. Then another, and another, and then Bobby woke up